The Houston Rockets are just a fascinating team to look at. Their history isn't some smooth, straight line to the top. It's more like a series of massive peaks and deep valleys. It's a franchise that's really defined by its constant hunt for the next big superstar, building things up from scratch over and over again. But here's the thing. To really understand their greatest moments, you have to start with their absolute worst. With a nickname that, for a while, defined sports heartbreak in Houston, Choke City. Because what's so wild about this story is how that moment of just utter collapse under pressure actually became the very thing that forged a champion spirit and created one of the toughest teams in the history of the game. Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Because before they were H-Town's team, their story actually got started way out on the West Coast. The team was originally founded in 1967 as the San Diego Rockets, and they struck gold right away, drafting a future Hall of Famer in Elvin Hayes, who immediately got them into the playoffs. But you know how it goes, money troubles popped up, and by 1971, the Rockets were packing their bags for a new home, becoming the very first NBA team in the entire state of Texas. So once they got to Houston, it took them a minute to really get things going. But then everything changed with the arrival of an absolute force of nature in the paint. That force was Moses Malone. I mean, what a player. They called him the chairman of the boards, and for good reason. He was this unstoppable rebounder and scorer who completely transformed the team's identity, all by himself. And if you need a perfect example of his impact, just look at the 1981 season. Get this. The Rockets actually limped into the playoffs with a losing record, 40-42. But the second the playoffs started, oh man, Moses Malone just put the entire team on his back and went on an absolutely legendary run. They stunned the defending champion Lakers and somehow battled all the way to their first ever NBA Finals. Now, they did end up losing to Larry Bird's Celtics, and that team was a juggernaut, but it almost didn't matter. The message had been sent loud and clear. Houston was officially on the map. So, that little taste of glory really set the stage for the team's golden era. After Malone eventually moved on, the Rockets once again found themselves a franchise-altering center, a player who would define their greatest moments, Hakeem Olajuwon. But at first, Hakeem wasn't the only giant in town. See, the Rockets had drafted the 7'4" Ralph Sampson in 1983 and then got Hakeem in '84, both with #1 overall picks. Can you imagine that? They created one of the tallest, most intimidating front courts the league had ever seen, nicknamed, of course, the Twin Towers. And it worked. Right out of the gate, they stormed their way back to the NBA Finals in 1986. And guess who they met there again? Yep, the Boston Celtics. And even though they lost, everyone was thinking, this is it, this is the next dynasty. The future seemed limitless. But then injuries just hammered Ralph Sampson's career. And just like that, the Twin Towers era was over almost as fast as it started. The years that followed were just filled with playoff frustration. But in 1992, Rudy Tomjanovich took over as coach and started building this really tough, resilient identity. And boy, was that identity put to the test in the '94 playoffs. After blowing 2 massive leads against Phoenix, a local paper just destroyed them with the headline Choke City. But instead of folding, the team rallied, won the series, and defiantly flipped the script, adopting a new name, Clutch City. They rode that Clutch City momentum all the way to their first NBA title. And then, the very next year, as a huge underdog 6 seed, they did it all over again, which led to their coach delivering one of the most iconic lines in sports history: "Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion." And that's exactly what they were. 2-time, back-to-back NBA champions. It's really the absolute peak of the franchise, born right from the ashes of their most humiliating public failure. Just an incredible story. So after the Olajuwon era faded, that cycle we talked about began all over again. This time, it was centered on a player who would not only change the team, but would completely change the global landscape of the entire league. In 2002, the Rockets drafted the 7'6" center Yao Ming from China, and then they went out and paired him with the superstar scorer Tracy McGrady. The excitement around this duo was just off the charts, and everyone in Houston was sure another title was on the way. Now, the Yao and T-Mac era made the Rockets one of the most popular teams on the entire planet, especially in Asia. They had some incredible moments like that crazy 22-game winning streak. But, and it's a big but, this whole era really became one of the NBA's biggest what-ifs. Constant injuries to both guys just kept them from ever reaching their full championship potential. But you have to understand, Yao's legacy is so much bigger than just what happened on the court. His role as a cultural ambassador was just monumental, bridging the East and West. And that status was put on full display for the whole world to see when he carried the flag for his home country at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Just an iconic moment. As Yao's career wound down, the Rockets pivoted to their next superstar. And this time, they brought in a whole new, bold strategy that would literally change how modern basketball is played. The team went all in on advanced analytics, a philosophy that became famous as Moriball. The idea was actually pretty simple. Build your offense entirely around the most efficient shots in basketball, which are three-pointers and layups. That classic mid-range jumper? Yeah, they basically threw that shot in the garbage can. And the perfect engine for this whole system was James Harden. I mean, for 9 years in Houston, Harden was an MVP who put up historic, video game-like numbers. The Rockets were always contenders, they reached 2 Western Conference Finals, and never had a single losing season with him. But they could never quite get over that final hump and win a title. And that brings us right back to the beginning, back to this cycle. The Rockets' entire history is a story told through its superstars. Malone's grit, Hakeem's heart, Yao's global reach, and Harden's revolution. The formula has always been the same. Find the generational star, build the team, and chase the title. So now as the franchise finds itself in another rebuilding phase, the one question that defines their past and their future remains: who's next?